Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details. Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hello there, this is Anthony King from Force Ghost Conversations, and you are listening to Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In 1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance.
We are a spark that'll light the fire that'll bring the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Star Wars Reactions. We are so happy you are joining us this week, and we are going to have a great time and a great show today. Let's go ahead and get some introductions out of the way. My name is Aaron Harrison. Joining me, he is the whim to my Neil, the David Motters. David, what's up, brother?
Hey, brother. What's up is we are recording. We are having a great time with Skeleton Crew. We might be behind by a little bit, but that's okay, right? People can listen to these and get our take on these episodes after they've listened to other podcasts and their takes on these various episodes. But I'm ready to react. And like I said, looking forward to covering this super cool episode with you, brother.
Absolutely. If y'all haven't figured it out yet, we are running a week behind in our reactions to Skeleton Crew with the holidays right in the middle of the season. We do what we usually do, and we take a week off to spend time with family and stuff, which put us just a week behind on our reviews here. So we're recording this on January 9th of 2025. So episode 7 is already out, but we are going to be discussing episode 6. And this has been a strange week for me because normally when the new episode drops, I watch it immediately. But the new episode 7 has been out for 2 days now, and I still haven't had a chance to watch it. A little crazy.
Yeah, no, it'll help you with just recording this, right? With no influence from that episode.
Yeah, which is a good thing, but hopefully I'm not as busy next week because I don't think I could sit on my hands for 2 or 3 days to watch the series finale. So that's going to be that'll be a hard one. So I'll have to make time at that point. But we are going to have a great discussion. We're going to talk about Zero Friends again. But I wanted to take a quick second here because I know we got some friends that listen to the show that live out in California, and of course some of the biggest names in Star Wars all live out there as well. And some of the Star Wars family has been affected by these fires out in California. So we wanted to I want to take at least a moment and just let our family and friends out there know that we're thinking about y'all. We're praying for y'all, and we're hoping that this thing gets extinguished quickly, with no more loss of life, and property can be replaced. I know it's hard because, trust me, it's hard going through loss of property, but as long as you're healthy and alive, that makes a big difference. So we're definitely hope and pray that everybody is safe out there. I know Mark Hamill had to evacuate. They've evacuated Harrison Ford from his home. I know Vanessa Marshall posted online that she was literally right on the border of an evacuation zone and is watching things closely, and it's getting hairy out there.
Stephen Stanton too.
Yeah, Stephen Stanton has been posting a lot, and he's awfully close to it. So there's a lot there's a lot of hurt going on out there right now, and we want to just let everybody know that the reactions team is thinking about y'all, and we're praying for y'all, and definitely don't wish this on anybody, but we definitely hope everybody stays safe and things get handled quickly. And definitely a huge thank you and blessings to the firefighters who are putting their lives literally on the line to fight those flames. So, well, with that said, I figure we'd go ahead and jump into our discussion of Zero Friends Again. Zero Friends Again, episode 6 of Skeleton Crew. This was released December 31st. I'm getting tongue-tied. Carabast. Was released December 31st, 2024. Written by Bryce Dallas Howard. Written by young Joel Wesner. I know that first name's right because I went to elementary school with a guy named Young too. So I know I can pronounce that first name right. So this episode, of course, after narrowly escaping Renaud's lair, an argument leads Fern and Neil to part ways with Wim and KB as they try to find their own way back to the ship. Meanwhile, Jod is captured and put on trial by his former pirate crew.
That's right.
All right. So let's jump into this. Let's kick off our initial reactions. David, my friend, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. What were your initial reactions when you first watched Zero Friends Again last year?
Well, last year, yeah. And I watched it again tonight, this year. So that is good. I don't know how many more superlatives I can use to describe this show. I mean, I think at times, Aaron and I have felt like a broken record, particularly on shows that we enjoy. Listen, is it a perfect show? No, but it's incredibly enjoyable, incredibly entertaining. The conflict between the kids, it brings tension in this episode, and it's followed by even more tension during their escape from, I don't know, it's not the trash compactor of A New Hope, but boy, oh boy, is it a souped up trash compactor eating their ship here. So I love that escape, and love how it ended. And of course, like we said, we're looking forward to episode 7. So how about you? What were your initial reactions?
Man, this episode was absolutely fantastic. I keep waiting for one to disappoint me, and it hasn't so far, just because they've kept the story going at such a pace, and they've gone into so much detail, and they're growing the character so much. And what I loved about this episode is the way they actually brought KB to the forefront of this episode. She's been through every episode, but this was more a KB centric episode. We got to see a lot about her. We get to see a lot about her augmentations, and of course, what's great, we got to see her and Wim make a connection, and to me, that was just a great series of scenes there. And I really, really enjoyed this. And of course, we got the ship separation there at the end. Absolutely fantastic plot twist. I cannot say I did not see that one coming. Absolutely great, but it was fun. It was fun to see and deal with. So let's go ahead and jump into some talking points here. And of course, the biggest plot twist here is we find out through the events of the last episode that KB has the coordinates for Aten in her memory.
Yeah. Going back, you and I were talking again just before we hit the record button about how short some of these episodes are, but there's so much packed in it that going back and just watching the episode again and listening to everything that the characters have to say. Of course, you and I have talked about it. I watch it at least once with the subtitles, sometimes twice. Also once without it, so I'm not distracted. I can just look at all the visuals. But it was interesting to hear her talk about that. And I'm like, oh, that's right. At the end of last episode, they're down in Rennett's lair, and that hologram is playing, right? Mm-hmm. And she must be recording that at that time. Because when she said that at the beginning of this episode, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's right. She's standing there. She's watching it with everybody else. How did she remember that or keep that? Or, of course, she's paying attention to all of it because she's so detail oriented. So that's huge, right? And I guess the question would be this is, does Jod have it on that card? Well, how does he have them? Is it that SM33 recorded it into his memory banks? Is that kind of what we're thinking? He knows how to get back there? What's your take on that, buddy?
Yeah, I think he probably does. I think he probably has a memory card with it. So you see him have that. But I also, of course, we know that SM33 has it as well. But we also know SM33, because of this episode, is now a blasted up bucket of bolts again. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets reassembled at some point. I don't know how many. I was going to say I don't know how many times a droid can get shot up and put back together, but we've seen R2 destroyed how many times?
Yeah, true.
Throughout the Clone Wars and get put back together.
Well, I just remember because when Kim remember when Kim in episode 3 is going through and they get that data card and Jod grabs it, and then they go to Ad Akron. So it's not that data card. So it's probably SM33 has it in his memory bank.
True.
Right. Watching that video or watching that hologram, and same thing with KB, right? So they're the two who I think, as I put this together in my mind, register that. So that's really cool.
No, that's really cool, and I'm glad they're doing that because we now have a race to Ad Akron.
That's right.
That's developing. So we got, of course, we don't know how this is going to end up, because, like I said, I haven't watched episode 7 yet, and of course, we got the final episode coming out next week. But it's going to definitely be interesting to see how it plays out going forward, as we race to Ad Akron and the finale. And I like how, even though getting back to Ad Akron's kind of been the goal through this whole thing, they haven't let it just sit there as a MacGuffin. They're actually really working to get there, and it's actually been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Throughout the having it as the goal. So of course, as we mentioned in opening, of course, the kids split up and go their own different ways. We have KB and Wim partnering up and following the quote unquote trash crabs, hoping to find a way back to the ship because, they're quote unquote local. Whereas Fern gets Neil to follow her as they attempt to climb up the side of a massive cliff to get back up to the Onyx Cinder, which has been left up on the landing pad.
Right.
So, of course, very interesting how they split. And of course, Carabast, KB, sides with Wim on it. And when she says she agrees with Wim, you see this almost look of confusion on both Wim's face and Fern's face as to what did she just say? And what were your thoughts when we saw our heroes split and go their different directions, David?
Well, I've worked with kids for years and years and years as a clinical psychologist, and it's tough sledding, right? They don't have fully developed brains, right? I've talked about this many times in a number of psychology corners, and so emotions, a lack of thinking things through with that prefrontal cortex, because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, and you can get you can get to a point really quickly where there's tension, there's strife between them, and so on and so forth. And what's really beautiful about this, and of course, Bryce Dallas Howard handles this whole episode so well as these kids, is showing stuff that kids deal with. They are concerned about people judging them. Us adults are, right, buddy? And so these kids are as well. And we really get to the point where, KB in her frustration finally does convey to Fern that she doesn't listen very well, and now again, you and I have talked on this podcast and we've talked about humans, and we're very difficult, and it's not easy for humans to listen. It's quite a skill. We want people to be able to do it, and I know people want to be heard, and so they want to speak, but it is incredibly important to be able to listen as well. And so that was neat to see KB say that to Fern. And then later on, of course, we see KB convey to Wim that she was fearful of saying how she really feels because she would go back to zero friends again. So it's very clear that at one point KB did have zero friends, right, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
So I like how this all plays out. So this is all character growth and character development. And like you said, we really get to learn way more about her. It's kind of wild. They don't tell us what the accident is. KB just shares with Wim that she's had an accident. I don't know what that is. At home, is it on Aunt Atten? I'm guessing Aunt Atten. I don't think any of them had left the planet, but I don't. Do you want me to dive into the next point?
Yeah, go right ahead, man.
Because I figured, going off of what you mentioned, them interacting, and it moves into her and Wim talking, it's that I really felt like the writers and Bryce Dallas Howard, writers meaning, the creators, Christopher Ford, John Watts, the writer, right? What do we have on this one again? Young Joe Wesner, the writer, and of course the director, Bryce Dallas Howard, do such a great job of covering the subject of disability. And I really wanted to this is a psychology corner here in the in the middle, because I haven't done one or a factoid in most of these episodes, but I really felt it after watching this. I'm like, I can really throw a psychology corner in here. And so let me say this, when it comes to disabilities, you'll see this effort in our culture to try to make everyone quote unquote even, when it's not the case at all. There's real differences between us, even if we don't have a disability, right? Now, KB says it. She says, I can't do everything she does or what other kids do. Even Neil, when he's climbing up behind Fern, what does he say? I don't have spider legs like you. I've got these short, stumpy legs. I can't move as well as you. And what I want to say to people is it's okay. We're not all even, right? I'll give a prime example, Aaron. You and I watch sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all this kind of stuff. I'll ask all of our listeners, I'll ask you this question right now. Like Michael Jordan, are you 6'6", and do you have a 48-inch vertical, Aaron?
Yeah, no.
Right now, I stood next to you. I'm not.
You said you'd know better.
I know the answer to this. I mean, and I would argue that every single one of our listeners does not have a 48-inch vertical jump like Michael Jordan, right? Maybe we have some listeners that are 6'6". I got a client who's 6'6", sweet guy. I love working with him. But yeah, there's tall people, but most people aren't. I mean, look at LeBron James. Are you 6'9" and 40 years old and changing hands in midair and dunking? My son just showed me that highlight. Most guys in the NBA can't do it. So there's a part of me where I get really frustrated with this idea, like we're all even. We're not. If we are, hey, put me on the Bulls with Michael Jordan. They would laugh me off the court. Okay, dude. And you and I know this. It's not bad. It's okay. I'm not 6'6" and I don't have a 48-inch vertical. You're not going to make us all even. Now, on the other hand, I would say this. I think it's good to try to not focus on other people's disability to the point that we take the stance, quote, they have a disability, they shouldn't even try this. No, not at all, right? I just want there to be a balance between those two views. And so I wanted to mention that. And then another part, and I've mentioned this before, maybe several years ago in a psychology corner, I don't know which one, but there's a thing in developmental psychology called the Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Vygotsky was, considered a pretty famous developmental psychologist. And what he talked about was giving children, and even young adolescents, preteens and teens, challenges that are just above where they are, right? And that's what we see in this. Neil is challenged, but Fern helps him. KB is struggling, Wim helps her. But it's not so difficult asking these individuals to do stuff that's just not feasible. So the zone of proximal development is something that reduces frustration in children and adolescents versus asking them to do stuff. Now, again, jumping on a ship and like Fern and Neil do, and they go whipped around and they're escaping from the big, mama crab. Look, I know this is beyond the zone of proximal development. But again, whether someone has a disability or not, we have to be smart about this. And I just wanted to bring that up again, that we can't ask, everybody to be even and do all this stuff. I'm not asking you, Aaron, to go back to 1998 when the Bulls are going for their 6th NBA championship and you're on the Utah Jazz. And I'm like, hey, Aaron, why don't you cover Michael Jordan? Go ahead. You can do it, right? You and I aren't even on the team to go against Jordan. Okay. So, again, does that make sense when I say all this, buddy? Like looking at this, be supportive, validate that people have disabilities, validate that people can't do certain things. On the other hand, be encouraging and help them to do things, but don't sit here and think everyone's equal and even. And I love that KB and Neil both say we're not.
Yeah, and I like that, and that's why I want to let you go ahead and go into that next topic, because what you had in the notes was perfect, because we see them we see the differences between these kids so well in this, and we see how they get along and how they overcome their differences, and especially with KB and Wim, that to me their story in this episode to me was just absolutely incredible. It was literally on a different level.
Well,
and
yeah. Well,
go ahead.
You go. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I was going to say it was just such on a different level that it was just, you couldn't help but just get emotionally invested in what they were going through, and everything, and the danger with her augmentations failing, and Wim having to do things he's never done technologically to try to fix her, and then of course the emotional impact of her just popping up and being like, hey, bet you didn't think it would be that unexciting to save somebody's life, and just really pump Win up at that point. Thanks, Jedi. Obviously, Bryce Dallas Howard knows how to give you a 1-2 punch with your emotional gut. So,
oh yeah. Well,
what were you going to say?
Yeah, when I so rudely interrupted you, I was actually
you're fine.
Yeah, I wanted to back up what you're saying, and I'm going to back it up with that 1-2 punch you just said. The first punch is when Wim says, "That's so dumb. You can just be friends with me and Neil anyway," and you see what that means to KB. Mm-hmm. There's the boom, right? Here's Bryce Dallas Howard and the writer saying, "Here's the first punch." Then the second punch is what you just said, where KB looks at Wim, knows what it means to him to be a hero, and when she says and calls him a Jedi, you see the smile on his face. Boom, there's the one, boom, boom, the 1-2 punch, and it means the world what Wim said to KB and what KB said to Wim.
It does, and there, to me, there. If you look at the episode guide at StarWars.com, when you first go to the episode guide for episode 6. They got the title bar up front, up top, right below it where they have the synopsis and title and episode information. There is a beautiful picture of KB with this grin on her, with this half grin on her face, and to me, it's the perfect snapshot of this character in this episode. And because she is, you could see joy coming out of brokenness in this snapshot, and you see that in KB's story in this episode.
Yeah, well said.
So, and of course, let's jump over to Fern and Neil. Because, of course, Neil's having to face his own fears by, climbing up a steep cliff to get up to the ship, and he's following Fern. And Fern has to step back and actually help him, which is kind of not in her repertoire. She leads and expects everybody to follow. But we see her having to adjust her train of thought to help him overcome his issues, because they're on a ladder going up the side of this cliff, and because of his arm length and everything, he can't actually go up like you or I could, going rung to rung to rung. He's having to stretch and grab and pull himself up because he just can't make the reaches. And so we see Fern actually come back to help him and actually come up with a genius plan by tying the rope well and counting down their steps up the ladder that actually encourages and helps Neil do it too. What'd you think about Fern's and Neil's story, and Fern's real, I would honestly say, a real step in leadership in this?
Well, yes. Again, all this character development, we just talked about it with Wim and KB, and here we are with Fern and Neil. And then what you see is this coming together, not only the two groups, 2 and 2, working together to help each other, but then this morphs into, as we move into them getting on the ship and having to work together, all 4 of them, to escape, right? The trash compactor. I'm calling that thing the trash compactor 2.0, right? Trash compactor 2.0. And so it does. It just works brilliantly, right? These writers are so good, and they're moving forward in a linear direction. And of course, for me as a clinical psychologist, when I see, children acknowledge, yes, here someone needs some help them. Right, we talk about that. You've said it at the end of each of our recordings for quite a long time. Be kind to people, help someone out. And that's what she's doing. When Neil says, hey, I can't do this, she's like, all right, let me help you out. KB is struggling, and Wim's like, all right, I'm going to help you. And what a concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What a concept. And then, like I said, these two different groups of two come together as four, and we really see the teamwork. And I enjoy seeing that. I really enjoy seeing that. So, yeah, you said it. I think we're really seeing the leadership, because then when they get on the ship, what do we see, Aaron, right? Her leadership. Yep. She makes that decision on the hull, right? On the hull of the ship. So, yeah, so piggybacks real nice into the end of the show.
Yeah, well, not even in the hull, on the you're talking about when she explodes the hull off.
Yes.
Yeah, because we see her, I thought you meant when she's hanging onto the hull trying to pilot the thing. then of course inside when she makes the decision to blow the hull. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic leadership skills. She's finally finding she was confident before, but she's finding more confidence in her does that even make sense?
Well,
finding more confidence in her confidence. I mean,
it's growing it, right? Because when you're saying that, what I was thinking about, Aaron, is when she shows her emotions to Wim, when what episode it was, when they were at Akron, and she was in tears. She goes, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in over my head. I almost got us killed. And so, yeah, her confidence was there. It was a shakiness, and she was really down on herself. Wim was trying to pick her up, but we can see her growth from then till now.
Yeah, very true, very true, very true. Now, of course, there's another duo that we have not addressed yet, and that, of course, is our fearless now Captain John Norwood and SM-33. They probably have the shortest amount of time in this episode, because we see them right at the beginning as he comes out of basically a manhole onto the landing deck up at the resort, and he is like covered in chains and gold and jewels and all kinds of precious treasures that he's taken from the lair. And he climbs up and he's talking to all the people from the Nupa resort are kind of just standing there looking at him as he comes out. And he's like, oh, come, there's a whole bunch of treasure down here. We got to get it out. And he's basically trying to encourage them and get them to help him. And next thing you know, and they're not moving. They're just kind of staring at him blankly. And then he turns around and there is his good old pirate friend, Gunter, with a blaster at his head. And of course, the pirates all come rushing in and, of course, take his weapons and take him into custody. And then he tries to convince them to go get the treasure and everything. And they're like, no, we're not. We're going to take you back to the captain and to Brutus, and he's going to take care of you and blah, blah, blah. The next thing you know, you hear John yell, 33, attack. Next thing you know, 33 comes barreling out of the manhole and doesn't get halfway out before he gets blasted 2 or 3 times and just kind of falls over in a metal flump. And of course, then the Republic shows up with their squadron of X-Wings, and the pirates retreat and escape, which kind of, I was a little confused about this. Maybe you can help me out, because the pirates came in 2 ships, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we see one of the ships get shot down by the X-Wings. We see it engulf in flames and it goes down. The second one is being chased by the X-Wings. We see it get hit multiple times, and it looks like it's going down as the X-Wings and the ship pass over
the kids.
How did they escape?
Well, that's it. Apparently the hyperdrive is still working, right? Because when you see it come, that ship that was hit, it's got smoke coming out the side there on Lanupa. But then when we see it come out of hyperspace into the dark of space, we see the smoke coming out the side, and it pulls into the pirate frigate. So they were clearly able to make the jump and get away from the X-Wings. But I hear you. Apparently the smoke coming out the side of that pirate ship didn't affect their hyperdrive.
Obviously, yeah. It was. That was the first thing I thought of when they came out of hyperspace and they were coming toward the pirate command ship. I'm like, how did? And that's still the one thing that bugs me about this episode. How did they escape? Last time we saw them, it looked like they were going down and they were being blasted by X-wings as they were going down. I don't. I would love to have seen those piloting skills.
Yes,
that got them away.
And clearly, it's the pirates that we all know were on the one ship, and all the pirates we didn't know were on the ship that went down and exploded. So
exactly, those the ones that went down and exploded were the pirates who don't do anything.
Exactly. You see all the ones we've seen, Gunter and Beef, the big guy. Yep. He's the one. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Greg McLaughlin, our good buddy and close friend in the force from Rebel Base Card podcast, because when I initially watched this, I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like, where's the lightsaber? And when I was listening to Greg, his coverage of this episode, he clearly remembered, and watching it tonight, you see it. Beef, the big guy with the messed up face, he takes the lightsaber off of Jod, holds it, looks at it, but he has it with him so that Jod doesn't have it. So I did not pick up on that. I think, I'm going to be honest, the first two times I watched it, when I watched it tonight after hearing what Greg said, I'm like, oh, there it is right there. So I just wanted to mention that. And so some of these little details are kind of big ones, right? Wasn't the ship going down? No, wait, it made the jump to hyperspace. Wait, where's the lightsaber? Oh, there it is right there. So there's a lot. That's why I mentioned that, we mentioned it. It's, even though these episodes are short, there's so much packed in them. If you blink, you miss it.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. If you blink, you miss it. And, I do remember seeing him when they take him into custody there on Lanupa. I do remember seeing one of them grab the lightsaber and pull it away.
Gotcha.
So it did get taken away right there on the deck. It's like one of the first things that gets taken. Someone grabs the blaster, then somebody grabs the lightsaber. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I almost think he pulled it away. Then he kind of looked at it like, really?
Yes. And I think because of all the gold and the bling on him, I wasn't even looking. Mm-hmm. And it's weird, right? You go back and watch stuff, and like you said, you picked up on it immediately. The first two times I watched it, no, I wasn't picking up on that. And then this time I'm like, oh, of course, there it is. But it's quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very quick. It's a blink and you miss it moment, and it definitely was a good thing. And I'm curious to see if he gets that back, because I hate for him to have a moment like they did at the end of the last episode, where he has that devilish grin as it goes off the air, as the screen turns black and you hear it ignite, and then not see it again. That would really grind my gears.
Agreed. Yes, grind your gears.
That would really grind my gears. So of course we're going to jump back to Lanupa here. Actually, no, let's stay with Jod for a moment, because they get back to the pirate fleet. Brutus puts him on trial, declares him guilty, but then you see one of the fellow pirates interject the pirate code to give Jod equal time. And you can tell this pirate's probably not the happiest she's ever been under Brutus. And of course, everybody agrees he needs to have equal time per the pirate code.
Yeah.
Of course, I half expected Brutus to turn and look at him and pull the whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing. Well, it's not really code. It's more like a guideline. But he didn't, so I'm good. But it would have been priceless if he would have, though. But then Jod gives this very impassioned speech, and really it's a speech that really gets you thinking that he's going to flip this crew against Brutus and he's going to be in command again. And I love how they set that up, where he's given the speech, he's playing on the emotions of all that crew that's there for his trial, and he's telling them about treasure on that and how they'll never have to scrounge around for their next meal because they'll always have an endless supply of credits to do whatever they want. This guy can get his farm. This one can get her own fleet, and so on and so forth. And he's really playing on the emotion. Then, of course, out of nowhere, his timer runs out, and actually, he's pinned up against an airlock, and Brutus is threatening him, if it doesn't pay off, that's what's happening to you, as he ejects all this cargo out the airlock. So it was a unique twist of events in the speech. What were your thoughts on Jod's plea for basically a cry for, well, I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily call it a cry for help, but his final plea, I guess.
Yeah, I like what you said. Like, you can see clearly, right, first episode, we see him as Captain Silvo, right, before we know him as Jod Nawood, right? So he's Captain Silvo. He's kind of back to that again with them. And I agree with you. He has the gift of, I wasn't going to say gab, but he has this gift of manipulating and hitting these pirates right where he needs to convince them to go with him once again, right? So he has that ability. He's very slick. He's very persuasive. And you see them all agree to it. Brutus really doesn't want to. He think, because again, go back to the first episode, they go into the vault and there's one little measly credit in there, so he's done really with Jod. But it's nice, almost like a little, not quite a shanty, but a little kind of song about Tech Rened, and how he pillaged AT-AT and stuff. So it's kind of cool, really kind of piratey stuff. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really cool scene. And again, his acting is, I'm just going to be honest, far and above many Star Wars actors. I'm just being honest, right?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, no, it definitely is something, because I don't even know where to. It was a very unique scene in and of itself, and I still have not fully grasped everything about that scene yet. I feel like there's more I'm missing from that scene, but I like what you said. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So now we'll jump back to Lanupa.
Okay.
And we have Wim and a newly functional KB following the trash crabs, and they round the corner, and out from behind the hill of trash comes the Tet'Ness, aka the mama crab. And then they realize, well, maybe it wasn't a bright idea to follow the trash crabs.
Right.
And I like what Wim says. He's like, why do I always pick the wrong people to be the good guys?
Right. Learning, right?
Yeah. He's learning.
Small and cute doesn't necessarily mean safe, does it? Yeah.
No. Exactly. And Force use doesn't necessarily mean Jedi.
That's right.
Right. He's learning. But then, of course, we have the whole scene where the crab is trying to get him. Then, of course, Fern comes flying in, controlling one of the crane droids that's moving the Onyx Cinder, and swoops down and rescues Wim and KB. Then, of course, the mama crab gets mad because she lost her dinner and throws a tantrum and throws a rock and destroys one of the other crane droids carrying the Onyx Cinder, which causes it to spin out of control and crash. And, of course, when they all come to, they hear a noise. They climb up to the top of the hill and look down upon the Onyx Cinder being eaten by a mobile garbage compactor.
No, trash compactor.
Trash compactor, sorry. Mobile trash compactor. But instead of just squishing it, it burns it and It literally is burning it up. It's crushing it, crashing it, squishing it, ripping it to shreds, while feeding it into a massive, what appears to be a massive furnace, which is probably just turning it into slag.
Oh.
So the danger is real, y'all. So of course they board the ship, and Fern takes charge, tells Neil to take a seat because he's going to pilot it. KB is going to go jumpstart the engine, and Wim is going to jumps in a gun seat to try to blast the ship off of the trash compactor off of the Onyx Cinder, because they can't pull away because it's holding it in place as it's trying to pull it in and basically have it for lunch.
Yeah.
And of course, then you mentioned it earlier, Fern takes charge and presses the button that they are told never, ever, ever to touch. The whole demolition device. And she pressed it. And I gotta say, it's probably the coolest scene in the episode, as the hull of the Onyx Cinder just starts exploding from the ship, and all of a sudden they're able to pull back and the ship splits into two, and you have a brand new, nice, shiny ship fly away.
Oh man.
Which makes me wonder if the Lego version of it does that.
Right. That would have been a serious giveaway, right?
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, so and it flies away and they fly off into the sunset, and that's where the episode ends. What were your thoughts on our transforming starship?
Well, I always listen to Dan on CWK, and he had a field day with this, metaphorically, story-wise. And I encourage anybody to go over and listen to what Dan had to say there about that. He says it much more eloquently than me, and again, from a mythological and story perspective. But for me, I just... to keep it just was so cool. And you know what I thought about, Aaron, as you were describing this? I'm like, the whole series starts with Wim pushing a button, right? We talk as kids, you're always told, don't touch this, don't touch that, don't touch this. And I've liked some of these museums I've seen that are like, it says, please touch museum or something like that. They want you to interact and play with it and stuff. So I think every kid in the world is going to watch this and say, see, Mom, Dad, look, no, never touch. Look how touching this button helped, And so here's one: Wim pushes a button, leads to all kinds of adventure. Fern hits another button, and they escape and have a brand new starship. So I think the argument is push all the buttons you can. There you go.
Push all the buttons. I think my wife would disagree with that statement, but okay.
Right. As kids, don't push all your mom and dad's buttons, but I just had to say that. So
I like that though. Yeah. Let's not push everybody's button. That would make for an interesting day. Hopefully they don't be pushing buttons when they get home. So all right. So yeah. So there we go. That pretty much covers everything there. Of course, there were some Easter eggs throughout this episode. Most of them came in the Mama Crab Tet'Ness scene. Phil Tibbitt's studio put that to Mama Crab together, and they had a whole bunch of stuff in there, including part of a 3PO droid, an R2D2, a K2SO, just scattered in amongst the junk that's piled on it. We even see one of the trash droids carrying a stormtrooper helmet. Did you see the R5, the one carrying the head of the R5 droid?
I wondered if that's what it was. I wasn't sure though.
Yeah. I didn't catch it the first time I watched it, but when I rewatched it tonight, right before we jumped on, I rewatched it and I caught it. I'm like, that's an R5 droid, because I was looking to see what I could see in there. Yeah, and I saw the head of an R5, and I'm like, all right. That's
I give my
new.
daughter. Yeah, she saw the Stormtrooper helmet. I had to back it up, and I saw it. I'm like, oh, there it is, right there. Yeah. Again, didn't see it the first time. You're looking around. You got to hit pause on this stuff,
Yeah.
to see all this. Um, I would just tell people that they did a short. If you go to StarWars.com, they did a short video on Phil Tippett's studio and the persons who created that whole stop motion scene. But just recently, here within the last day or two, they put out on. If you go to YouTube, I've subscribed to Star Wars on YouTube. They show a slightly longer version of that animating of the mama crab, and they talked to, instead of just one person, they talked to three of the people there at Phil Tippett Studios. And so if people want to watch that, it's really fascinating how they hold it up and how much they animate it. And I have to say this, I wanted to see a lot more of the crab. Watching it again, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work, and you don't see it a whole lot in this episode. But it'd be interesting if they go back to Lanupa, and they, I'm sure Phil Tippett Studios will keep that mama crab ready for more adventures. But yeah, if people want to take a look, check that out at Star Wars' YouTube link.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, definitely do that. I didn't know they posted a longer version of that on there. I'll have to go watch it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll be good to check out. All right. So anything else you want to talk about before we close out the episode?
No. How about you?
No, I'm good. So let's go ahead and jump in to our final reactions here. And since you went first before, I'll go first now. And, again, just another fantastic episode. It was, part of me wishes these episodes were longer, but I love the fact that they're short and there's so much compacted in there that you can watch it a dozen times and still learn something new, which is a fantastic trait that they learned from the fantastic Dave Filoni. He had to have been. He's the master of that. But great story. I love the emotional impact. If you go back and look, all of these episodes with that Bryce Dallas Howard directed had this type of emotional impact, and I love it. She does so well at it. KB, I always liked KB. When it came to the four kids, she was kind of like, okay, she kind of ranked him. She was kind of my probably my least favorite because we weren't seeing much of her. But after this episode, she's definitely one of my favorite. Her and Neil, man, they're the bomb. I love it, and I think it was way overdue having this KB centric story. So absolutely well done. And like I always say, I don't see how they can outdo themselves, but they keep doing it each week. So here's to what happens next.
Nice.
How about you, my friend?
Yeah, I would say this particular episode was exceptional for several reasons. One is because, how it advanced the characters and story. You and I went over that, extensively in this reactions episode. Second, it covered the issues of disability and friendships in a really good manner. And I went over that kind of as a mini psychology corner. And third, the special effects at the end of this episode are incredible. And I feel like they spent this past year, instead of putting it out, I feel like they tightened up all these special effects. And Aaron and I have talked about that in a previous podcast episode where we covered a previous episode in the special effects. I think particularly when we go to Port Borgo, those special effects there are incredible. I just feel like they just took more time, and you can really see it with this ship and that trash compactor 2.0, et cetera. Incredible scene there to end it. So very happy, and like Aaron mentioned, I think we're looking at a race to add in between the kids and Jod and the pirates. So here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's going to be great. Can't wait to see how it finishes. And of course, everybody, we want to hear from you and hear what your thoughts are about the season so far of Skeleton Crew. And of course, of the episode we discussed tonight, Zero Friends Again. And no, we're not talking about my middle school years, but let us hear from you. Of course, we have lots of ways you can get a hold of us. You can Facebook and X, or Twitter X as David likes to call it, at SW Reactions Pod. You can get us on Instagram, Threads, TikTok for now. I'm assuming it's sticking around. Tumblr and Pinterest and Blue Sky, all at SW Reactions. Email us swreactions@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/Star Wars Reactions. That's a mouthful. So, David, if somebody wants to talk Star Wars with you, how would they go about doing that?
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, Twitter X, it is at David_Modders, Modders. Instagram, just my name. And if you go to any of our socials, Aaron always forwards any of that to me, and I'll respond, to those as well.
Absolutely. And of course, if you want to reach out to me, besides the show socials, the best way is X at TA Harris 121079. Now, David, do my eyes deceive me, or do my show notes tell me you have a factoid this week?
I do, not only a mini psychology corner, but a factoid. I mentioned in my closing comments that, this episode covered disability, and I really used that as a mini psychology corner. I wanted to hit on friendships again in this psychology factoid. And I've gone over friendships before in previous episodes. Again, people can go back to any of ours and look at when I've done psychology corners or factoids, but this bears repeating. I just wanted to get this back out to our listeners, Aaron. And it's this, is the psychological literature is very clear that having one good friend is a protective factor in our lives. We don't have to have 80, 90, 100 friends to survive. No, one good friend. And I wanted to mention that, particularly with the title of this being Zero Friends again. So one good friend is so good for us. I mentioned this earlier in some of my comments. It's pretty clear that KB had zero friends before. Those kind of situations, I just want to remind people, and again, my work with children and adolescents is, those are tough because those situations can lead to quote unquote friendships where one person takes a back seat like KB does, and that person can be willing to do or say things that they wouldn't normally do or say because they want to keep that friendship. They don't want to lose it. And you hear KB saying this to Wim, I can't share that with her. She doesn't have the patience to hear some of this. So people keep things to themselves, or they'll do things that friend says to do, and you're like, I don't think that's really good to do or say, but you want to keep the friendship, and so on. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that as a little psychology factoid. Be a good friend, and it will really help other people out. And hopefully people are a good friend to you as well. So there you go. Mini psychology corner and a psychology factoid in this episode.
We are blessed indeed, my friend. The 2 for 1. 2 for 1. 2 for 1. So now I'm wondering if I should give you a 2 for 1 as well.
Oh, no.
No, I won't do that. Not tonight. Not tonight. But it is time for the Star Wars dad joke of the week.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What is the Jedi Temple on Coruscant known for?
Ooh. What is the Jedi Temple on Coruscant known for?
It's nightlife.
Oh my. Oh my.
Nightlife? Jedi nightlife?
Oh my gosh. It's getting worse. To explain it.
Love it.
Oh my God.
Love it, love it, love it.
Oh, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds
What's that?
Well, we got Central Florida Comic-Con coming up.
Yes, we do.
Right? And we interviewed Timothy Zahn, and he explained how he came up with the name for the planet that's at the center of the galactic universe, Coruscant. And so if people want to hear that, take a listen to that episode where we do our wrap up coverage of Central Florida Comic Con. That would be what, 2023?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was 2023. Gosh, doesn't feel like it's been 2 years ago since we got to talk with Timothy's on. But yeah, so yeah, if y'all are in the Central Florida area and you got nothing to do, the week, well, I guess for us it would be next weekend. So, but the weekend of the Saturday the 18th, I know we will be at Central Florida Comic Con, hanging out, having fun, cruising the floor, hitting some panels. Probably gonna see what I can do to meet Rufio, if you know the movie Hook. The actor that plays Rufio is going to be there, and he actually had some stuff in Clone Wars as well. So looking forward to that. But yeah, we'll be there. If you're there, look us up. Let us know you're coming. Look us up. We will would love to meet you. Maybe we'll have some swag for you. You never know.
Okay.
So you got some. So well, but let's wrap it up, my friend. This has been a blast as always.
I love it. Love recording with you, buddy. Had a great time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you everybody for joining us. Y'all are the best. We love y'all. We're praying for y'all, wishing y'all the best. Of course, do something kind for somebody. Don't give up on that kindness. And if you can't find somebody kind, somewhere to do something kind for somebody in your hometown, do something kind for those suffering, whether it be the people still recovering from the hurricane in North Carolina or Florida, or the people who are suffering from the fires out in California. Find a way to do something kind for them. You will definitely feel better and feel blessed for doing it. So remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.